What's a random fact you think is worth sharing? That the patent for the fire hydrant was lost in a fire. Lamborghini started making supercars because Enzo Ferrari was being a jerk to Ferruccio Lamborghini. Lamborghini started as a tractor company that surprised people by making supercars. Today they're a supercar company that surprises people by continuing to make tractors. A polar bear's liver when eaten will kill you from vitamin or overdose. Honeybees can be trained to sniff out landmines in war zones. Obviously dogs can do it, but to avoid blowing up poor unsuspecting doggos, they figured out that bees could do the same thing and swarm the area without setting the mine off to alert people to its presence. Humans' ability to smell petrichor, smell of wet earth from rain, is greater than a shark's ability to smell blood in water. There was a phantom poop on an Apollo mission. A poop floating around that none of the astronauts said was this. There was a short period of time when Picasso and Snoop Dogg were both alive together. If you find a 4-leaf clover, then there is a good chance you'll find more not too far away. Giant tortoises didn't get a Latin name for decades after discovery because whenever they were shipped to Europe to be studied they were eaten. Reading the descriptions of what the meat tasted like is almost exclusively just lists of how much better they taste than any other food. At last this most useless fact has been given an award. Thank you, kind stranger. Fun fact, Darwin brought back hundreds of giant tortoises to London. They all got eaten one by one due to deliciousness. Darwin ate the very last one whilst the ship was within 2 miles of the harbour to offload it. There are more people living in California than in the whole of Canada. The sun is not yellow. When viewed outside Earth's atmosphere it is white. It only looks yellow due to our atmosphere pulling the blue light out, leaving it looking yellow. It's an illusion. You are always looking at your nose, your brain just chooses to ignore it. When an octopus is stressed or bored, it often starts eating its own tentacles. There is a whale named 52 Hertz, also known as the world's loneliest whale. This whale is on a different frequency than any other whale, so it has most likely never heard another whale before. The devil's hole pupfish. It's a critically endangered fish, measuring about 1.2 inches. 30 millimeters. They live in an isolated body of water in the Devil's Hole in Nevada. The water temperature is consistently 91 degrees, 33*C, which is very warm for most fish. Devil's Hole is a water-filled cavern stretching into a rocky hillside at an elevation of 2,400 feet, 730 meters. Devil's Hole is over 430 feet deep, 130 meters, and connected to a massive underground aquifer below that. But the Devil's Hole pupfish only occupy the upper 80 feet of Devil's Hole. It gets much smaller than that. They primarily eat, live and spawn on a small shelf measuring just 11x16 feet. 3.5x5 meters, with a total area of 176 sqft, 17.5 meters. They have been living in this shelf as an isolated species for up to 60,000 years. They were discovered in 1930 and since then have faced many trials. Agriculture trying to drain the water, vandalism, and outright attacks. They are now surrounded by protective fences and surveillance. Since 1972, 200 fish. The population spiked at 550 in 1995, but then saw a slow decline. At its lowest count in 2013 it was down to only 35 individuals. Thankfully it's back up as of 2019 to 136 individuals. There have been multiple attempts at conservation, even going so far as to build an exact replica of the Devil's Hole 22 feet deep, 6.7 meters, and have raised many fish there. They have a very fascinating history and remain largely a mystery. For such a tiny fish, millions have been spent on conservation efforts and protections, legal battles and defense. I think it's all completely worth it. They are the single most endangered fish on the planet and are completely unique to the Devil's Hole. There was a time on the earth where there were, at least, 4 different human species at the same time. Homo sapiens, Homo neanderthalensis, Homo denisova and Homo floresiensis. Explanation for all those posts I've been seeing about how the existence of the uncanny valley means there was a reason to fear something that looked human but wasn't. It was forbidden to ride on moose in Sweden until 1973. An old law forbade such for fear of rebels. Bob Ross was a drill instructor. When he stopped working as that, he promised he would not raise his voice at someone again. That's why he was so soft-spoken. Picking up a turtle by gripping it from the sides is said to be painful for the turtle. This is because turtles are attached to the insides of their shells, and you're basically letting the weight of the turtle's body hang from the upper half of the shell. Instead, the proper way to pick them up is to support them from the bottom of the shell. A cave in Vietnam, called Sun Doong, is over 300 meters deep and miles long. It's so big and open it has its own ecosystem with a rainforest growing in it. In Thailand there is a rock formation called Hin Sam One which looks like 3 whales jumping out of the cliff. It's against the law to use an elephant to plow a cotton field in North Carolina. Why was there a need for this law to be made? It actually goes back to the days of P.T. Barnum when traveling circuses would come into town. They would set up in fields they rented from local farmers. Then as publicity stunts, the promoters of the circus would often use elephants with banners on them to plow the area around them, oftentimes doing a large amount of topographical damage to the surrounding terrain and or crops in the field. The farmers wouldn't be compensated for the damage, and eventually counties made it into a law to prevent any more damage to fields. Fallow fields could still be rented out, but no more damage could be done to the area. When burning body fat, 84% is converted into carbon dioxide and exhaled through the lungs. The California Highway Patrol once had an open offer of a full prime rib dinner at Larry's Beverly Hills and a case of scotch for any patrolman that could bust Steve McQueen for speeding in the Green Rat, his barely street legal 1956 Jaguar XKSS. The specifics were to catch him speeding, pull him over, and issue a ticket. The problem here was the Green Rat was so fast, nothing in the highway patrol could equal its speed. McQueen did get busted once after a cop managed to sneak up on him because his wife was in the car, but he used his wife knee aisle beside him as an excuse, telling the cop she was in labor. She wasn't, but he said it was a false labor after the cop left. Emma Marano of Italy was the last documented and verified person to die that was born in the 1800s. 29th November 1899, 15th April 2017. You fake sleep before you real sleep. Oh yes, and apparently that falling sensation you sometimes experience before falling asleep is called a hypnic jerk. I think that's what it was called, lol. And it's like a hallucination we have that is associated with anxiety or something. If you thoroughly shuffle a deck of cards, the exact order they're in has almost certainly never been duplicated in the history of shuffled decks. The technology for the fax machine was invented in 1843. The feudal era in Japan ended in 1868, abolishing the samurai class. Abraham Lincoln lived until 1865. All of this combined lead to a 22-year period in which Lincoln could have received a fax from a samurai. Napoleon was actually a little taller than average. French inches were slightly larger than English inches at the time, so it looked like he was shorter on paper. British propaganda from the time used this to depict him as a screaming child, and the image has just stuck around. While we're at it, carrots don't give you superpowered eyesight either. That was another piece of British propaganda from WW2 to both keep the new radar system a secret and encourage people to grow war gardens. Muscles do not develop the same in everyone, and their exact origin/insertions can differ between people. In some, the biceps have 3 or more heads, as opposed to the normal 2. Some muscles are entirely absent, such as the psoas minor, found in about 40% of humans, and the sternalis, only 7.8%. In India, some dogs killed a baby monkey, so the monkeys then started killing any dogs they found for revenge. They would drag them up to the highest points and drop them. They literally killed 250 dogs. This left me mind blown thinking about animals doing this, and I really need people to know about it and talk about it with me. PLS. Tigers are orange and black to humans, but to animals with hooves, their prey, they appear green and black and blend in with the jungle around them. You take about 23,000 breaths during the day. Magnesium is really important, like really important for bodily health, and that was never pushed until only recently. Also, high blood pressure. One of the things that magnesium combats is one of the primary factors for heart disease/artery thickening. Arteries are actually muscles, and dietary cholesterol has little to do with it. Focus on your blood pressure by getting adequate nutrition, exercise, and stress management, and you're golden. Bread is made by giving yeast reproducing in heat eating the ingredients mixed with it. Therefore when you eat bread, you're literally tasting 6.